Hey everyone, welcome back to Hack the Platform. Here we talk about Copilot Studio, Power Platform, Azure stuff, and the things you can build once you stop treating the product boundaries as hard walls. If you like deep technical walkthroughs like this one, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and check out my blog at hacktheplatform.dev. That's where I publish the full write-ups and diagrams and pictures after each video. Alright. Today we are talking about Copilot Studio agents, A2A or agent-to-agent protocol, and a very real limitation you'll hit the moment you try to scale beyond a single environment. So let's start with the problem. Copilot Studio works great as long as everything lives inside one environment. You can build agents, connect different tools, even let agents call other agents, and everything feels nice and contained. But the moment you try something like this, I have a copilot in the environment A, and I want to call another agent in the environment B. This is where things stop working. That's no built-in way to expose a Copilot Studio agent so it can be called from another environment, another tenant, or another agent runtime. And this becomes a real blocker very quickly because in real projects, environments are isolated on purpose, different teams own different agents, you don't want one giant Copilot doing everything. So the question becomes, how do I expose Copilot Studio agent as a reusable capability that other agents can call? And that's exactly what we're going to solve today. So here's the target state. I have a weather forecast agent, test weather agent in Copilot Studio. This agent does one thing well. It provides weather forecasts for given locations. Imagine I'm building a larger agent somewhere else, a travel assistant, a planning agent, or even a corporate copilot. Instead of baking weather logic into that agent, I want to delegate. Go ask the weather agent for tomorrow's forecast. So conceptually, the weather agent is a specialist. Other agents should be able to call it, and environment should stay isolated. That's the architecture we are building. So basically, we need to build a bridge. Instead of trying to call Copilot Studio directly, we introduce an Azure function that acts as an A2A proxy. This function sits in the middle and does all the heavy lifting. It accepts agent-to-agent calls, it validates tokens, it performs token exchange, and it forwards requests to the weather forecast agent. Think of it as a translator between A2A style agent calls and Copilot Studio's runtime APIs. I've already implemented this function, so in this video I'll deploy it, configure authentication, and wire it up to the weather agent. So once deployed, we get a single HTTPS endpoint that other agents can call. Okay, so I created the function. Azure function is ready, the resource is ready. I downloaded the project, ran npm install, and I built the project. So now I'm ready to install the project to the Azure function to deploy it, and then we will need to configure a certain settings. So we should remember that once we decide to expose an agent, security comes first. We're about to create a public endpoint, so we need a clear answer to who is allowed to call it and how it can securely call Copilot Studio. That's why we also need to start with an Azure Entra ID app registration. This app registration represents a service identity, and it will do two things for us. we will define a scope that callers must request when calling our proxy, and then it allows that proxy to invoke Copilot Studio agents. So we configure the app registration, expose an API scope, grant the delegated permissions for invoking copilots, and we will create a client secret. Once this is done, we will have a trusted identity that all parts of the flow can rely on. We need to do a couple of things here. First of all, we need to expose an API. We need to add a scope. This is done. The second thing, we need to add permissions. We want our Copilot Studio agents to be called as a user. So in this case, we need to add delegated permissions, which will allow a user, an authenticated user, to call Copilot Studio agent. APIs in my organization. Power Platform API. We select delegated permissions. We need to find the Copilot Studio, Copilot invoke. That's what we need to add. And apart from that, we need to add also our APIs. So we will use the application ID. We expose this API, and we need to add the scope so the users can also request it. This is the application ID of our app registration, and we need access as user. We can then grant admin consent. The next thing what we will need to do, we need also to generate certificates and secrets. So no problem, the secrets, I will rotate the secrets after I finish the video. So no problem that it's visible here. Yeah. And now we have it. So before we go any further, we need then to create the settings in the Azure function. I created a copy of the settings sample.json local settings, and now I will fill it in. Power Platform's source is api.powerplatform.com. Now the interesting part about Copilot Studio things. Okay, so this is my agent. This agent I want to call. So now I will get the link. I need to go, for example, to the web app, and I see the connection string. I will copy this link. We'll go back here, and this will be my conversation URL. Inside the conversation URL, I also have the bot name. Successfully uploaded. Let's check that. Yeah, so it seems everything's working. So, and we're ready. Okay. We have Azure Function. We have the app registration. Now, what else do we need to do? We need to configure the authentication of Azure Functions. So we do not want any user to be able to call the Azure Functions, even though the implementation will not eventually will not obtain the token in the Azure Function. So we need the authenticated user. How can we do that? We go to the authentication here, and we add an identity provider. This will be Microsoft. We will use the existing app registration. which is A2A Copilot proxy. Let's check if that's the same. Yep. Yeah. Client secret expiration, issue URL, okay, from this application itself, from any identity, let's say, and allow requests only from the issue tenant. This should be enough for us. If you want to limit or restrict any further, you are happy to do that. The only thing that we need to make sure that everything works, we need to add the audience. So when we request a token inside, when we want to access the Azure functions, the token will come from a specific audience. And then we will allow these token audiences. So our token audiences, basically the ones that we have here. And this is it. So right now we can already add the A2A agent to our Copilot Studio agent. So with the proxy running, the next step is to use it. We go to another Copilot Studio agent in a different environment. In this case, it's environment A. Instead of connecting directly to the weather agent, we add a new agent-to-agent connection. How can we do that? So this will be our, let's say, main orchestrator agent, and I want to add a new one. I will connect to an external agent. I will select agent to agent, which is meanwhile in the preview. So the endpoint URL, that's our Azure Function URL, but there is A2A, JSON, or PC. Now, this will be our weather agent. Authentication. I will select OAuth 2, and I need to fill this in, the client ID. We receive the redirect URL. Now we need to add that redirect URL into our app registration. We go to the authentication, add redirect URL, web, and we add that and configure it here. Now let's create the connection. We got connected, add and configure. Meanwhile, we can start the log stream. And the agent was already configured. Now, how does this all work? So our agent, using our connection, will call our Azure function. Inside the Azure function, the token that I obtain to call an Azure function will be exchanged to another token, which will then be used to call the Copilot Studio with the weather agent. So the on behalf of flow is used inside the Azure functions to do the token exchange. Now we test everything end to end. We run the colon agent and ask, what's the weather forecast for tomorrow in Berlin? The request flows. Call an agent, we see these Azure Functions. Azure Functions will give everything to the weather agent and then back again. So eventually we get the forecast for tomorrow in Berlin. And we can also preserve all the context. We simply say, and for today, we can see that the weather agent proxy was triggered again. And then today in Berlin, that's our weather. Okay. And in Celsius, the interesting part here is that the Imperial system is hard-coded in the weather agent. Therefore, we get actually everything not in metric system. But then my Copilot, this agent, explains everything then and converts everything to the metric system. So if something breaks here, it's usually very clear where. Either authentication or permissions or Copilot endpoint configuration. Once those are correct, the flow works consistently. And at this point, you've achieved something Copilot Studio doesn't support natively. So let's wrap it up. Copilot Studio agents are powerful, but they're environment bound by default. By exposing a specialist agent like our weather forecast agent through an A2A compatible proxy, you unlock real agent reuse, clean environment isolation, and scalable multi-agent architectures. Yeah. Today it's weather. Tomorrow it's pricing, compliance, policies, or domain-specific expertise. If you want the full breakdown, diagrams, and links, check out hacktheplatform.dev, the link as always in the description. And if this video helped you, like it, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which agent you'd expose next. So, see you in the next one. Meanwhile, you can hack the platform.